This is a little story about a creep. A creep who thought he had all the power in the world. A creep who probably had a horrific childhood, but a creep nonetheless. Anyway, I first befriended this creep online back in 2011. Facebook, of course. We had mutual friends. Friends who I trusted, so I assumed he was a cool guy. I know now that's a terrible assumption to make about strangers, whether you have mutual friends or not. But back then, I was a naive 18-year-old girl. His name was Danny. I thought he was a cool guy at first. He had an awesome taste in music, and shared a lot of great songs with me. He was also incredibly, inappropriately hilarious. He was full of jokes and bizarre stories, and I soon grew to love talking to him. He never asked if I had a boyfriend. I assumed he knew I did. After all, we were Facebook friends now, and there were pictures of my boyfriend everywhere. It's not like I kept my relationship status hidden. It was right there for all to see. But I guess he didn't know. One day, in October, he decided to tell me how he felt about me. He recited a poem he'd written, comparing me to a beautifully and elegantly handcrafted tapestry. And keep in mind, I've never even met the guy, and we'd only been talking for a month or so. I responded with something along the lines of, "Wow, I wish my boyfriend said stuff like that." He got angry. So angry. He asked me how I could have let him on like this. He asked me how I could do this to him. He told me that he had opened his heart to me. He begged and pleaded, and supposedly, he cried. I was beyond puzzled. I decided to give him some space, and it worked for a few days, but he eventually messaged me again. He may have apologized, but I can't honestly remember the exact conversation. I do know that things returned to normal, and he became silly and fun again. At this point, I had his Skype, and he had mine. I would talk to him there sometimes, but I never used the camera. I didn't feel comfortable with it. Actually, I hated using the camera with anyone. I told him that when he started to beg me to use it, but he never relented. Still, I just kept making excuses. Danny wasn't having it. He got more aggressive, and then he got sexual. He told me to Skype naked with him. Time after time, I told him no. Eventually, I blocked him on Skype, but ended up having dozens of angry messages on AIM. I don't remember exactly what he said, although I do have screenshots of all of it on an external hard drive somewhere. I remember it being hateful and absolutely insane. And there was some stuff about me being a really awful friend as well. Before long, he told me he was an excellent hacker. He told me he had a whole slew of hacker friends as well. He told me he could change my college grades and make me fail, and that he would make my life a living hell. I didn't necessarily believe this at all, but I did believe he would do something. Despite these negative confrontations, we still had periods of silliness. During these periods, things were normal. I felt safe, to an extent. I tried to keep him happy, because I wanted to stay in his good graces. I really did believe he would try to tarnish my reputation otherwise. Before long, he started giving me ultimatums. Either you get on Skype with me, or things will get very bad for you. I can tell your boyfriend you're cheating on him. I eventually asked our mutual friends about him. They said he was violent, dangerous, and twisted. Even better, he lived mere minutes away from the college we attended in Reading, Pennsylvania. Every day, I started to get more panicked about going to school. While on campus, I'd look around for guys that looked like him, guys with long red hair and beards, and I'd be wary of anyone who even slightly resembled him. At this point, I was honestly convinced he'd show up and try to find me. I had him blocked on AIM and made a new Skype. I knew this would infuriate him, and it did. I received another batch of messages on Facebook about how I needed to learn to treat people better. I told him I was uncomfortable with what he was asking of me, and he responded with something along the lines of, "Fine, you've chosen your fate." I blocked him on Facebook. I'd had enough of him terrorizing me, but I should have known it wouldn't be the last time I'd hear from him. At the end of November, I received 3 Facebook messages from someone named Adam Knowing. Whoever he was, he just joined Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and he had no friends or content. The message read as follows. November 27th, 2011. You've been warned repeatedly, and are now being served notice. November 29th, 2011. I believe this is your last warning, and that you've been informed of your behavioral issues. The situation will change before the start of the next weekend, where action will be taken. November 30th, 2011. So you attend college, right? And your grades are passing? Not for long. You were warned on how to treat him, and how you are to act. You've got until this week's end to correct this behavior, or life becomes a very difficult thing for you. You should never treat someone who has a life like his the way that you do. To this day, I'm not sure who Adam Knowing was. It could have been Danny, or it could have been one of his low-life hacker friends. Either way, I was terrified at the time. Against my better judgment, I unblocked Danny on Facebook. By now, my boyfriend was aware of the situation, and he suggested I contact the police if things got any worse. Maybe I should have, but Danny hadn't officially done anything to me. What could they do? Still, I took screenshots of all his screen names. I saved our chat logs on AIM. I took screenshots of all of his threatening messages, and I saved it all to a folder, just in case I needed evidence. Danny's nonsense continued right through Christmas. Some days he'd be sweet and funny. Others he was back to being angry and pressuring. I promised him a Skype session to calm him down, but I kept using my schoolwork as an excuse to delay it. Shortly after Christmas, I blocked him again on all accounts. I decided I would deal with whatever repercussions that came with. If I did end up being hacked, at least I had evidence, right? A couple of weeks went by and nothing happened. Then I received a Facebook message from another account I didn't recognize. I don't remember the name of this one, but I remember the message. After careful consideration, you're being let go. You may want to do the respectful thing and thank the one who you've wronged. It's only thanks to his compassion that you're being forgiven so easily. I blocked the account immediately. In January of 2012, something magical happened. I woke up one morning to the news that Danny had been arrested. The charges? Possession and distribution of child pornography. A bunch of his creepy friends had been arrested with him, having been involved as well. In 2013, Danny was indicted. He's looking at up to 60 years, which will make him almost 90 when he gets out. Even if he's released early, he'll be supervised for the rest of his life. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to post the link to the news story, but it is online. I guess being a monster creep catches up with you eventually. This happened 4 years ago. I was a sophomore in college at the time. I typically avoided relationships if they weren't mine, or if they were. Mostly because of how busy college kept me. I'm a journalism major. So I think you get the point. Aside from that, I had healthy relationships with friends and went out occasionally. My roommate, Piper, had this boyfriend she brought over every night to have sex with. It was boring, and I got tired of all of the sex and decided to move out. A month or two later, I moved in with my new roommate, Jenna. Piper and her boyfriend broke up. But it wasn't the average, it's not you, it's me. It was for a bigger reason, and apparently I was involved. Piper texted me at 10 p.m. and said the following: "How fucking dare you? Must you really destroy my happiness?" I texted back, "What the hell are you talking about?" And she proceeded with, "My boyfriend said he can't be with me because he had feelings for someone else, and it was you." I was stunned, and then responded with, "I don't know him at all, and you two should get over it. All you two did was fuck all the time anyway," and I left it there. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was blown up with texts. I didn't even bother checking. I just clicked my app so the notifications went away. For the next few weeks, though, weird events had been occurring. My jewelry went missing, and I even found a smashed photo of me and my mom on the ground one night when I got home. After that, I remember going up to Jenna and yelling at her, but she insisted that it wasn't her. The sincerity in her voice told me that she wasn't lying. She had nothing to be mad at me for. No one else knew about the little spare key under the plant outside our door but Jenna and I, so someone would have had to deliberately look for some sort of way to get in. I checked the plant, and sure enough, the key was missing. I called campus security, and the next day they sent 2 men over to check everything out. They didn't find anything, but they said we should talk to the supervisor of our building on getting our locks changed. I really didn't want to go through that. I regret not doing it now, but I suppose the story must continue. A day or two later, someone knocked at my door, and to my surprise, it was Piper's ex-boyfriend. "Hey, Piper's been sending me all kind of threats. Can you text her to chill out? She says you two still text." I responded with, "I haven't talked to her in weeks. She needs to lay off. Sorry, dude, but I can't help you. Call CS." "No, you don't get it. The threats are so bad. Can I show you?" he asked. I agreed, and when he showed me, I was disgusted. This girl was sick, and since he chose not to report it, the only word I could give him was to stay safe. That night, I was working on a paper on some writer and what he did to protect whatever, and I kept hearing footsteps in the living room. I got up to go check it because it was weird if Jenna were to wake up at 3 a.m., and all I could think was she got up to get food somewhere. I walked out and it was completely dark. I couldn't see anything except my lamp from my room illuminating a little bit of the couch. "Jenna? Is that you?" I waited and then heard a voice say, Yeah, I have a headache. I'm going to the store." But it wasn't Jenna's voice. I made the brave decision to play along. "Hold on, Jenna. Let me get you some money. I won't turn on the light, okay?" I said. The voice silently whispered. I walked back in my room and looked for some sort of weapon, turned off the light, and then stood in the door frame. "Come here. The light's off so it won't strain your eyes." The person started walking over towards the door frame. The only weapon I had was a very sharp hanger that I'd broken off a while back. She still came closer. As I heard her footsteps nearing, I remembered there was a light switch next to my door, and I switched it on. The light flooded into the room fast, and to my horror, it was Piper's ex-boyfriend. I quickly thrusted my foot at his knee and kneed him in the groin. He was on the floor, and I yelled out Jenna's name. Jenna rushed in and screamed. I yelled, "Call the police or campus security. Call someone quick." She pulled her phone off the counter and quickly dialed someone up. I noticed in his hand was the key from under the pot. The whole time I figured Piper was doing all this snooping around, and that Piper would be the one I would see when I switched the light on. I was so wrong. Eventually police came and took him down to the station and took a statement from me. I called the police a few days after the incident, but they wouldn't tell me a word. Jenna's brother works for the police station, and she invited him over to get details because he was assigned to work on the case as well as others. He asked me a bunch of questions about what texts I received. I showed them and he asked, "Did Piper usually write like this?" I looked and it was nothing like how Piper's grammar was. After that, he told me everything. Accordingly, Piper's ex wasn't the one who broke up with Piper. Piper broke up with him. He was so mad he pushed her down and stole her phone. He apparently always had some weird infatuation with me, and long story short, the sick creep was breaking into my house, pretending to be Piper, and sending threats to himself and I in order to receive my sympathy. The most disturbing thing was that there was a rope in his jacket pocket. What he planned to do with it, I don't know, but it's weird to think about. So after hearing all that, it was enough to make me decide to file a restraining order. He couldn't be anywhere near me in a 100-mile radius. I moved schools after that and went to a bigger city in Northern California. He got put in jail for a short time, and now 4 years later, I still keep in touch with Jenna. Jenna told me that when he got out, he asked a lot about me, to a lot of people, and asked about where I had gone. No one told him because it was a small town and word travels very fast. Apparently, he found a girlfriend and moved away somewhere I don't care about at all. All I know is that I hope that girlfriend is as crazy as he is, or smart enough to leave. Piper and I reconnected when it was my senior year in my new college, and we're still friends to this day. It freaks me out to know that he was in the same dorm with me, and I never had a clue. So people, please be very careful. I doubt any of you want this to happen to you. As an 18-year-old female, I've been stalked quite a few times in my life, but thankfully most of the perpetrators were annoying rather than scary. Though these two individuals never got to bloom into full stalkers due to the fact that I moved out of state, they were easily the creepiest individuals I'd ever met. I had begun attending community college, and in an effort to make friends, I joined an anime club. Once a month, we'd scrape together enough money for pizza and soda, reserve a room in the library, and spend the day watching everyone's favorites. Everything was great until the second meeting. We watched Princess Mononoke and Kiki's Delivery Service and some other similar movies. Then Chad put in the last movie of the day. It was animated softcore porn. None of us knew what to do. We were all kind of socially awkward. He'd sat through our movies quietly and politely. Were we supposed to do the same? We spent the hour and 20 minutes red-faced and casting each other horrified looks, while Chad watched the porn with rapt attention. Finally it was over, and he turned around. "What did you guys think?" he asked. He was looking directly at me. That was the first time I noticed that I was the only female in anime club. Trying to be polite, I made a huge mistake. It was, interesting? I meant it to convey his choice was interesting, considering we'd all brought in Disney movies, but he took it to mean I was fascinated with creepy porn. From that day on, he showed up everywhere I went on campus. The second I entered any sort of common room, there he was with his laptop, trying to show me anime porn, sitting himself way, way too close to me, so we could both lean in onto his screen and watch it. Each time, I would tell him, I don't really like this show, as politely as I could, and move to another table. But he would move right back uncomfortably close to me, and assure me that I would get into the story if I just watched. One day, he sat down next to me sans laptop, and heaved a sigh of relief. He pulls out a notebook, and shows me a drawing. It looks like a creepy robot uterus. Hoping I'm wrong, I ask what it is. Of course, that's exactly what it is. He's writing a book about an AI sex toy that invades lady parts and turns them into ravening sex fiends willing to do anything for the D. He wants my opinions on his story. I told him it wasn't really my kind of story and tried to move again. He followed and began asking really inappropriate questions in the name of research. Thankfully, at this point, Vincent, the boy who'd brought me into Anime Club, noticed that Chad was following me table by table through the lunchroom as I turned ever redder with embarrassment and came over. Chad fled before he even spoke. Chad was afraid of Vincent. Thank God. Vincent was awesome and always in the lunchroom. I could just hang out near his anti-Chad force field. Vincent played World of Darkness with his friends in the lunchroom, and I played all through high school. By proximity, I was eventually asked to join the game. I met with the storyteller, Paul, and gave him my character sheet. He informed me that I could keep whatever stats I had, but I was going to be taking over the role of Jenny, a long-standing NPC. I asked who Jenny was, but was only told I'd get a huge kick out of it, so I attended, waiting for him to introduce me to the team. They were playing the game in a seedy strip club setting. Everyone looked bored but Paul and a player named Bill, who were wrapped up in the ordering of a pen and paper hooker. I didn't know Bill, but he was huge and creepy, with an intense, unblinking stare that was always either focused on Paul or me. I start to get a bad feeling. Then Paul announces Jenny the hooker has arrived to service Bill's character. He turns to me and grins lewdly. Bill's searing focus locks onto me. "I'm not playing a hooker," I yell. Paul looks crestfallen, but Bill looks enraged. "Dude, just let her play the bartender." Vincent sighs when Paul begins pressuring me. Paul eventually relents, sulking. I finished that game and showed up for one more, but Paul insisted on sexualizing my character, and Bill just sat there across from me both games, breathing heavily and glaring. I quit the game. Bill started following me. He never spoke to me, just sat across the room from me, glaring and snorting, with Chad. They were friends. Of course they were. I had to abandon the cafeteria entirely, because while Chad was creepy, I was pretty sure Bill was dangerous, and he wasn't afraid of Vincent. Also, it really looked like Chad was encouraging him to do something while they stared at me whispering. I left the state at the end of the semester, but kept in touch with Vincent. About 7 years later, I married him. When I brought up all the crazy things that happened back when we met, he told me that actually everyone was afraid of Bill, particularly Paul. They tried to disband the game because all Bill wanted to do was rent fake hookers, but he'd made veiled threats that he might do something insane if they stopped playing with him. To this day, I think Paul was offering me to Bill the same way you offer the crazy guy at the office a Snickers, just in case the off chance that he does something drastic, he won't do it to you. What's up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. The growth these past few days has been pretty exceptional. I almost had my first video to hit 200,000 views, and we're almost at 25,000 subscribers, which is super awesome. I mean, my goal for the end of this summer was to get to 30,000, so it looks like we'll be doing that pretty handily if things continue going the way they are. If you guys liked the video, please feel free to leave a comment below, or leave a like and share if you feel so inclined. If you have any stories you'd like me to read, or you'd like to contact me, you can go ahead and take a look in the description, where there will be links to my Gmail, Twitter, and Facebook accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to include your story in a video as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please feel free to include in the tagline how you'd like to be credited in the description of the video in which your story appears, as well as the theme of the story, if there is any. If you guys are curious about the music in the video, music is always listed in the description of the video in the order of which it appears, and there will be links to the artists as well. So if you're curious about the music, you can go ahead and check down there in the description. If you guys have any constructive criticism, please feel free to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.